Right, should be able to knock this off quite quickly. Last ceremony on Monday night. It's now Wednesday, so we got my 50th ayahuasca ceremony tonight with a full moon. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm in a lot better space than I was yesterday after Monday's ceremony, which was interesting in quite a few ways. Those few extra people in the Maloka made a big difference. Antonio and Lady were really busy. First time back from Maestro Jairo. He's very refreshed after a dieta. So feeling really good. And you could tell he had that extra sort of energy about him, but he was very relaxed as well. And he was singing, first couple of Icaros were new. I'd not heard them before. And they were very slow, but they were like, he seemed once they got into the swing of it, it seemed to be like slow cooking everybody. So showing a couple of his little tricks. And so that was different. I'd had it's a really good group. They're really nice people. I spent quite a lot of time on the first morning. They were really interested in what I had to say and giving them tips and stuff, and very attentive, which was really nice. A couple of them have seen my videos. So had a good chat, and it was only one girl who'd had one ceremony previous experience 3 years ago in Holland. I thought, well, not the same as Peru probably, but there you go. But basically, after the first cup, it didn't take long. Half an hour to come up, and probably the first person vomited probably within 45 minutes. And I'd stressed to them, look, I mean, they've done their research enough to know that, vomiting is a big part of it. And it's just get it out. Don't sit there trying to suppress it because you're not concentrating. You're feeling uncomfortable. If it's ready to come, and they were all cool with that. And they did. But it was like dominoes going off as usual. I didn't have any effect, which I'm really glad about for what happened, because I didn't have any effect till probably 2.5 hours in as usual, after a little sip of the second cup. But just the first one was enough for everybody. Once the dominoes started to fall and they triggered each other, there were a couple of problems. One of the guys was struggling a lot. He was in and out of the Maloka, and I'm by the door. And because there was 8 of us in this ceremony now, because Josh came along as well, so we had me and Josh plus 6 guests, so it was packed. So Antonio and Lady were up and down like yo-yos once the dominoes started to fall, with people knocking on the floor, and then needing to go out to the toilet, and this, one thing and another. And then with the guy who was struggling, apparently he was really, really dizzy. And it took 2 of them to help him out and get him to the toilet. And then as soon as he came back, someone else needed to go, and then he needed to go immediately again, probably for something else like diet. It was just, and I was just in the end, I was just practically sitting up. I could feel the ayahuasca, and just smirking, just thinking, just got to see the funny side of it, because it was a bit chaotic. But I could feel the ayahuasca a little bit, but not much. I felt it wasn't really, I wasn't in spiritual space. But at one point after all, there was so much chaos, people in and out and in and out and in and out. And I kept just leaning over and closing the door to stop mosquitoes coming in, and then they'd be back in again, and leaving the door open for the next person. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm glad I'm not, in a heavy trip space where I'd really want to be concentrating on my ceremony. Because you just wouldn't, and it would have been probably, really irritating. So I just kind of thought, I just felt sorry for Antonia. But they said, I spoke to a lady later, the next day, and she said, oh no, it was just really good, because I suppose they've never been that busy. So it gave them something to do rather than just sort of falling asleep. And we haven't got the space now, so for the extra mattress, so they have to sit in the chair, so they have to stay awake anyway, so to give them something to do. But from a ceremonial perspective, it's not great. But it did calm down, and I was really surprised and pleased that even despite all the up and downing and everybody vomiting, bar one guy, I think, and me, and Josh didn't vomit in the ceremony. It was they all most of them took the second cup. So it was like, yeah, good for you, you know, that's the spirit. So that was good. Um, so then, what happened? Yeah, things. I I started to feel the ayahuasca a bit later, and there were still people up and down occasionally, and I started to feel quite unpleasant in my stomach. But it was an element of fear. But it was like, yeah, I've been here before. This is the accumulation of everyone else's fear that I'm feeling, you know, because that happens sometimes when everyone's, because people were just sat up. One girl was just sat up continuously with her bucket in her lap. And I thought she was meditating in the semi-darkness because there was a moon, so you could see a bit in the loca. And I was just sort of trying to say to her mentally, just, girl, you know, you've thrown up, just relax, because she was just a lot of huffing and puffing, like she was really struggling with the effects of Aya, you know. And she had a headache the next day and was pretty deflated, just energy-wise. So, but generally, I had a headache. I felt pretty terrible at the end of this one. When I got back to the room, I had my usual tripping balls off kind of thing. Started to come up toward the end of the ceremony. Literally, as I just said, I was in a pretty good mood and thinking, yeah, I'll just do the second cup for the first one. Fuck it, you know, I want to be tripping in my room. And just as it got delayed, because Maestro had to go up as well. He went out to help the other guy who was spending a lot of time in the toilet, very dizzy or whatever. So the second cup got delayed after Lady asking if we wanted it, by probably half an hour before it calmed back down again to everybody getting a situation where they were back in the Maloka and ready. And just before it got brought over to me, the first cup started to come on. I thought, oh fuck, maybe, not sure now. Don't want to fall into the trap, but then, what the hell? But I thought, I won't drink it all, because Maestro had given me probably half a cup in the first one. So and this had half a cup full as well, and I just thought, no, stomach's not too good tonight, because I'd had diarrhea in Indiana from one dodgy meal for a couple of days before, and I thought, I just want to clear that out. And so I just had a sip of it, because I thought, I've got that kind of feeling that it might be quite strong when it does come on, and I don't want to be up really late. And I'm glad I didn't, because I did have a pretty bad night, as it turned out. Really, just really low space, pissed off, just not feeling good, and a bad stomach. And I went to the toilet 4 times with diarrhea, with a stomach pain that was just not too, just annoying, but I didn't feel energetic. I felt really low. I didn't even do rapé. I was just lying on the bed feeling pretty shitty. But I knew I was going to be in for a tough one, because obviously a week away in Indiana and not eating proper dieta food, because it's just all you can get in whatever the little restaurants have. So I knew that my stomach, and I'd eaten a lot as well because I was bored. So I knew I had a lot in my system all week, and I knew I was going to have to get cleaned out. So I accepted it. I knew that I was going to pay in that respect. So, but anyway. But it was the next day that was the surprising worst part. I felt really, really, really low in the morning. Didn't get that much sleep. Probably didn't get to sleep till gone 4 o'clock. And up again, woken at 8 for breakfast. Probably 3 hours sleep. It didn't feel like because you wake up at 6 when it's light. It's bright. It's really bright at 6 o'clock. So just you don't get much sleep sometimes. And I had that lack of sleep headache and a bit dehydrated feeling, but it lasted all day. And with the low mood as well, felt just a shitty day. Really, really low. Like, I'm packing up ayahuasca. I'm fucking pissed off with everything. All of this shit. I'm going to do the last 3 weeks, and then I'm going and doing something. Just really negative space. But luckily, we all went over for a swim and I wanted to get out of the room by this point. I still had a headache. I spoke to the other couple, and they had headaches as well, and they felt just pretty hungover-y all day too. But when we went over in the boat, and I just jumped in the Amazon and went for a swim, and we were there for an hour, and I felt great afterwards. So again, it's the same old thing, it's ayahuasca putting you through the cleaning, where you have to experience the negative emotion for it to be removed. Because after the swim in the Amazon, to wash me clean, and sort of psychologically, I think, and playing with the dog, throwing a Reba sticks and stuff, and chatting to the guys, and almost full moon coming up as the sun went down. It's just so beautiful over there at that time of night to catch the sunset. And the river's just fantastic because it's just body temperature. It's just a perfect temperature to swim in. So felt really good after that, and then we got back and had food. So really, there's nothing specific. I mean, I spoke to a couple of people the next morning. The Japanese girl, had a really good chat with her last night. She's lovely. Can't think of her name now. So there's so many people I can't take the names in on the first day, the second day. We've got quite a lot in common. She had a pretty rough situation in her childhood with trauma-wise, so we had a lot in common, and I chatted quite a lot. Just the two of us were there till nearly 10 o'clock last night after food, about families and trauma and psychology, bipolar disorder, stuff like that. So she's actually been through quite a lot, but she's very strong. In a similar situation, traveling, got away from Japan to travel. And then another lady, Ashley, she's in her 30s as well. She's from Texas, similar situation. Again, a lot of parental stuff. So the three of us have got quite a lot in common so far. The other two couples haven't really spoken much to. They're a bit quieter, but nice people. It's a really nice group, nice energy. So I'm really looking forward to tonight. After chatting to the Japanese girl, I'm really curious because she said that it really helped her a lot what I spoke to her about, explaining forgiveness and with trauma. And she has to get to the root of her parents' trauma to understand why they were like they were. So really fascinating. I'll ask her maybe after tomorrow if she wants to do an interview to see if anything comes. I'm really curious about tonight's ceremony. After we spoke, as we were saying, I suggested maybe that could be her intention tonight, is ask Mama for information on the root of her parents' issues that caused the family so much problems. So that she was really happy with that to have, because obviously she's got no contact. Her father's died since, and so she doesn't have any way. And he was impossible to talk to anyway, because he was just a violent character, being bipolar, and he was just off the rails. Used to beat the kids and stuff. So she had a pretty rough childhood. So it's always, it's good to be put into perspective again. Sometimes, no matter how bad you think your trauma is, someone else has always got similar or worse. But it's nice when people have open characteristic traits, because I think it helps a lot. It helps everybody if people aren't too timid and closed down, because it's almost a form of therapy, and providing it progresses within the conversation and people feel comfortable with each other, and then it just naturally occurs, which is what happened last night with me and her. Which is why we were talking so long. And she said afterwards, I've never met anyone else with trauma like this, because she just hasn't spoken about it. Coming from Japan, it's just not spoken about. It's the same old, don't air your dirty laundry in public within that culture. And she's in her age group now, like I suppose the millennials and under 30, 35s. People are just more isolated. They're just, everything's on social media, and people don't connect in the same way as my generation. So she was really appreciative of our conversation, and it helped her a lot. She said, because it's really nice just to be able to talk to people that on a non-superficial level. It's not just where politeness, and she was in sales, so she had this issue. She always had an issue where, especially in Japan, where you always have to be polite because you don't want to offend anyone. It's not a wokeism type of offense. It was just their pre-woke culture of Japan. So that was always difficult because it's just, she said, it's superficial. You can't get to know people. Don't talk about themselves because they don't give anything away about that dirty laundry scenario. So it's really quite interesting cultural. But she just, she's quite gregarious. She's into surfing and stuff. So she's great. I really like her. And so we had a really good chat. So I'm really hopeful that just be interesting to see how her ceremony is tonight, and then talk to her tomorrow to see if anything that we spoke about, if maybe Mama Ayahuasca gave her any insights into the root cause of her parents' trauma, and then she's in a position to let the anger out towards her father primarily for treating them the way he did, even though he was sick, but understanding what was the cause of bipolar. Because I said from my previous experiences of two friends who were diagnosed with bipolar disorder, trauma was the root cause. But I'm not up on bipolar much. I said, probably best to look on YouTube as well for information on the origins of bipolar, what causes it, because I've only ever seen one person have a nervous breakdown and then later on again, and then be diagnosed with bipolar, and another friend who was diagnosed with bipolar, who it turned out was sexually abused by his grandfather when he was a child. So I said, so she's never studied, too much psychology or read any books on it. Not that I've only read a few books, but just mainly on narcissistic personality disorder and complex post-traumatic stress disorder, as you know if you watch these videos. But bipolar, not I haven't really studied it. So it'd be really interesting to see if Mama Ayahuasca can shed some light on that for her. And then if she understands the root cause, she's in a position to at least know that it wasn't her father's fault. Because that's what it's all about. You have to understand what made your parents like they were to treat you as their child in the way that they did. And only then, when you see that if there's been trauma involved, that wasn't their fault either. And then you're in a position to forgive them, and then that's your healing. So on that, I think I'll leave it and come back and then report tomorrow on, or depending on how I feel, of course, on ceremony 50 tonight. So I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully.